Next step, next checkpoint in the mechanics, we're going to go ahead and work our way back and say from the release point, your load, handbrake, okay? I've heard separation, handbrake, whatever you want to call it. This is when the ball has just recently come out of the glove. Your hands start breaking apart. They separate, ball separates from glove. Generally speaking, this is going to occur somewhere around the belt line. And again, that concept of equal and opposite, let's generally speaking want to separate equally and oppositely across this midline. I see some players who pull the ball out down here. I think that creates a greater likelihood for an imbalanced mechanic. In doing so, by doing one at a certain distance, now you've got to have two different distances and speeds that are occurring with the hands. I also don't like the out and down because now you've got two different directions. I think the more that you can have equal and opposite across your midline, I think it makes it the most easy for most players to be consistent and repeatable. Again, none of these are deal breakers. I just think they're watch outs, and I like to preach if you haven't developed a particular set of motions where if you can still make it so that you're breaking equally and oppositely with both arms, both elbows, both hands, then I would do so. The next thing is that's hand separation is you're going to be looking at the ball position. I've heard different stories about or different interpretations about how guys want to have the ball coming out. Some people will say, show that ball to the shortstop, okay? Show it right behind you to second base. Some people say bring it out and show it to third base. I think ultimately there is an element of comfort. One of the things I would caution people is to just keep an eye on the tension that's in your shoulders. One of the examples I like to give for the little kids that I coach, but it still applies, is this at separation. If you pull your hands out, I think it's important that you take a look and see what does it do to the rest of my motion if I push down with the ball facing the ground before I go out versus if I rotate it and now I start pulling this way. Do I get tension in my shoulders? Okay, or even further, am I pushing down and pulling out? I find that the more your hands are facing one another, okay, the more likely you are to get into this tension and either an inverted W or a lack of full extension out here. If the more you are pushing your thumbs down, the more it opens up and allows for a larger arm swing. And some of that may have to do with how big and natural your arm stroke is, that smooth circle that you go through. And so those are some personal preferences. The example I give to the little kids, getting back to that, is I ask them to scratch their armpits and pretend, what does a gorilla do? Ooh, 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 gorilla, right? And we're doing this, and what does an eagle look like? Eagle, big, wings, right? Nice and free. And then I ask them to go back. When you do this gorilla, I feel tension in my shoulders. When I have my arms out, I don't. I feel nice and loose, okay? So I'd rather be the eagle than the gorilla. Even though the gorilla is strong, he can probably muscle it up and maybe he gets to 90. I think that eagle's the one who can absolutely whip it through and let the rest of his mechanics do its job. So there's the handbrake section. I would say just keep an eye on separating equal and opposite across this midline somewhere. It doesn't matter if it happens up here or down below. And then the one other thing I'll talk about when we get to balance is making sure, don't forget, this glove and this knee are connected. You'll hear more about that in the next set.